Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Got a little bit behind today, but either way, live now. Got a big show with you tonight. Big game coming up Saturday. Going to talk about it a little bit today. There's some storylines about Fernando Mendoza, what this could mean for the NFL draft, what this could mean legendary-wise for the Ohio State defense, because they do look historically good. Something's got to give there. Plus, that Lane Kiffin story. The college stories seem to outweigh the NFL stories this particular week. Going to talk about Lane Kiffin. Is it a bad idea for him going to LSU? I can give you a reason why it should not really work out. I don't think it will, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to talk about that, and of course, NFL Power 5. A little bit on the Steelers. Mike Tomlin. Ben Roethlisberger says maybe he should just take the Penn State job. Stand by for that and more. Let me take our first and only break. Get situated here. I'll be back momentarily, and I'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. Alrighty then, folks. Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen adjusted here and I can't quite get it out. All right, now I'm back here live. Like I said, I'm gonna do it a little bit unorthodox today. Just got a feeling this Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU and saying that on his way out at Ole Miss that people try to run him off the road on the way to the airport, and I'll play you that bite. And just everything related to that. That just seems like a huge story. It's fascinating. Normally, I would start off with an NFL story, but this has just gotten my ear as soon as this happened, folks, on, what was it, Sunday afternoon when all this came down. There were talks about maybe him taking that Giants job. You know what it is. Well, if you don't, I'm telling you now, there was a lot of speculation also about him. And I said this, I thought maybe the Florida job, right? Well, anyways, apparently he didn't get along with the AD there, and the AD didn't trust him. So the Florida job was passed up. But here, let me get to my notes. As always, I get a little bit excited and get off my notes. So let me go back to the notes. All right. So Lane Kiffin accepts LSU job over Ole Miss. My biggest question was how much NIL budget was. This is what Kiffin says. How much NIL budget was the difference for Kiffin to bring in Ole Miss? Okay. So I went down and took a few screenshots here, and this is from this Google AI. So what they will do is they will cite about, and this is what I do like about AI. They will cite multiple sources here. You know, they'll cite like an ESPN, Forbes magazine per se, and whatnot. Who was it? Who was the other one? I want to say Yahoo. All right. But this is what it says. Ole Miss reportedly offered to match LSU's NIL money. Okay. This is from multiple sources here, multiple sites here. Ole Miss reportedly offered to match LSU's NIL money, but exact details and whether the total package was enough to keep Lane Kiffin are unclear, while Ole Miss offered a substantial revenue sharing and NIL package. LSU ultimately provided more comprehensive and lucrative deal that included a larger annual salary bonus and other incentives such as significant NIL budgets for players. Kiffin left for LSU, reported 7-year, $91 million, making the highest paid coaches in college football. Ole Miss's offer assured Kiffin could match LSU's revenue sharing at least under existing NCAA rules. So, what are you doing? And listen, I know that's a mouthful, but I mean, my thing is, if this is true, and according to Forbes, ESPN, yeah, I mean, like Saban said, Nick Saban said this over the weekend on, I think it was on game day or whatever, that, simply Kiffin could recruit better at LSU and use the transfer portal to fill in holes there and not depend on that for the majority of the talent, of the top end talent, aka that, of the transfer portal. Okay. If these reports are true, money is similar. Kiffin wants an easier route. Here's my thing, folks. All right. Lane Kiffin beat Georgia last year. We know that. One of the best teams in the country. Lane Kiffin, 11-1 with Ole Miss. They had Georgia beat this year. I remember putting this on the X out. 5 straight possessions. This gets Georgia's defense. 5 straight possessions, touchdowns out of the quarterback there. And I thought they were going to beat Georgia at Georgia this year and be 12-0. But my thing is, everybody talks about LSU this, LSU that. Yeah, 3 coaches since the start of the century have won a national championship. Back in 2003, you had obviously Nick Saban, then followed by Les Miles, Ed Orgeron. Okay, so I did a little bit of research here, and I noticed, they became a powerhouse after Nick Saban started building them up in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, after Nick Saban left Michigan State, win the SEC championship there, 2001, beating the Vols, big Vols guy here, beating the Vols in that championship game. 2 years later, winning the national championship, ultimately taking the Miami job with the Dolphins in the NFL. We know we came back and did that. And, of course, Les Miles took over, won him a championship. And a few years later, some years later, we know what happened with Ed Orgeron. Okay, so you're saying, why are you saying this stuff, Robert? Well, just a little bit of research. When was LSU? What was LSU before Nick Saban got there? Because I go back 30 years of watching this stuff, over 30 years. And I'm like, I don't remember LSU being in Tennessee or Florida's way or Alabama's way in the 90s. So when is the last time LSU won a national championship before Nick Saban did in 2003? Well, here's a list here. You can easy Google search here. LSU has won their last national championship before that was 1958. Okay? And then you look at Ole Miss, for example. Ole Miss was a better Ole Miss won a national championship in 59. The very next year, then they won again in 60, and then in 62. So my point is, why couldn't I don't know if he even thought about this. If he had talked to me, I'd have told him, hey, listen, once you look at it this way, Ole Miss won before Nick Saban, they had won a national championship after LSU has, So why can't you be the next Nick Saban there? So if he stays, and I think he could, judging by the way they played, judging by what they did, what Tennessee could not do is get pressure on. I compare them to Georgia, probably the class of the conference. If you beat Georgia, you can play with Ohio State. You can play Michigan. You can play with anybody, including Ohio. I mean that. You get pressure up the middle, and the way he's coaching these quarterbacks. Look at Jackson Dart's play. Looks like a hit in the NFL. I think what was the guy's name? Walter Mullen, the defensive tackle, first round pick there. So my thing is, does he, if he stays there and potentially wins a national championship, maybe 2 in the next 3 to 5 years, 7 years, he's in the same breath as a Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Dabo Swinney type of coach. All right. Now that he runs off the LSU and wants to go the easy route, wins a national championship there, then he's into the breath of a Les Miles, Ed Orgeron type. You see what I'm saying? So my thing is, why didn't you just build it up there? Why didn't you just build it up at Ole Miss and turn Ole Miss into the new LSU? Why didn't he have that foresight? You know? So he says it was a rough, it's a tough decision, and the fans are passionate. And let's see how they took it here. I found some video here off of TikTok here. Listen up. Okay, yeah, I know it's a bunch of college age kids, and they, they're flipping him off, booing him on the way out in the airport. Now, Kiffin takes it a step farther, and he says they were trying to run him off the road. Listen up.
That airport scene and Knox and I driving and people trying to run us off the road, man, and the things they said to us, and then we got here and we had been here for 6 minutes, and how we love you, coach, you're the best ever. And like, we only been here 6 minutes, we ain't done anything for you yet. That's the SEC, and I've been around long enough to know that, and it's just the passion of the SEC, and so I'm not upset at those reactions.
Okay, well, listen, like I said earlier, that I'm watching this on Sunday afternoon. I mean, I'm in the middle of watching these NFL games and whatnot, and I'm thinking to myself, all the way up to the time that Kiffin, to that actually come down to decision-making time, that remember they said he's going to have a meeting in the morning, and the decisions are made on Sunday morning. Then the meeting gets, I don't know if it's at 8 or whatever. Then it gets pushed off to the afternoon, and I'm thinking maybe he just says, I just can't do it. I'm going to stay with these young men. We're going into the playoffs. We're 11-1, best season ever, yada, yada, yada. And then this happens. And then this happens. And I start to think about the fact that maybe he has not learned his lessons from the past. I thought, you look at him, he talks about, I prayed about this, I prayed about that. And, he's changed his diet. He's real thin now. Went through a pretty rough divorce there, a lot of child support. And I thought maybe he's changed, maybe he's 15 years older than he was at 34, 17, 18 years, back when he got that job with Al Davis and the issues with Tennessee. I thought maybe, the fact that Al Davis said that he comes out and does the, God, what does he do? Has this weird press conference, and he's talking to the media and doing like a PowerPoint. We thought that Al Davis was a little crazy there when he was fired there. Then Tennessee takes him there. I want to say we're talking 2008 now, so it's a little while back. He's very young there, early mid-30s. Very young to be a head coach in the NFL, one of the youngest hires ever. And then this stuff happens at Tennessee. The USC job comes open, and a few of the hires fall through or whatever. And Tennessee's making all these good commitments and everything. They get some players the first year. He's going into the second year. And as soon as USC calls, he just drops on a dime and leaves Tennessee in the middle of the night. And only to happen when it goes to USC, backfires on him. He gets fired a few years later on the tarmac. He's down and out. Nick Saban reaches out, brings him in, helps him out with the offense for a few years there, win the championship. There's a few blow-ups on the sideline. Nick Saban calls it a butt chewing. I'll clean it up. And they're in the middle of another championship run, and he takes the Florida Atlantic. He's talking back and forth with Florida Atlantic, irritates the crap out of Saban, I guess because he's trying to recruit and do everything. So Saban tells him, just get out. And so it ends badly with Saban. There were some other rumors that I don't want to go too much into, that some issues he had that potentially caused his divorce in Alabama that are just rumors. But I can confirm that it did end badly with Saban telling him to leave there. So it just don't end well with the guy, you know. He and then you have this. He reminds me of a more talented, slightly younger at this point, Bobby Petrino, who, when he was coaching at Louisville, was sneaking around talking to Auburn and other schools here to move up then. And then we know about the stuff at Arkansas with hiring the woman there, the motorcycle wreck. So he's a great coach. He's a very, very good coach. Not great coach. He won a championship yet. But he's a skeevy person. You think maybe he's grown out of that and all that. And I say all that after this, and I'm telling you, this feels like bad karma. You know, I'll tell you right now, I don't think he's going to win a national championship at LSU. I think in 3 years they're going to fire him. I just don't. And if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. I'll admit I'm wrong. Been wrong a lot of big things. Wrong about the Deshaun Watson trade with the Cleveland Browns on the Cleveland standpoint. I just think that you saw what happened when LSU hired Brian Kelly away from Notre Dame, and it looked like that LSU is going to go off and win national championships, and Notre Dame was going to fall into an unknown, you know, like they have before in the past. But you look at what happened there. Brian Kelly gets fired, and Marcus Freeman left to take over, and Notre Dame goes to the national championship game, and now he's in the playoffs again, you know, just a few short years later. So this feels like bad karma. This does not feel like he's going to win there. Now, maybe he does, and maybe his philosophy is he's going to win multiple national championships, and he's going to be seen as a Dabo Swinney, an Urban Meyer type, which, in a sense, if he does, you can really compare him to Urban Meyer because it didn't end well with the off-the-field stuff at Florida. It didn't really end well there at Florida. You know, he had a lot of bad off-the-field issues there with the players, per se. And then, of course, at Ohio State, had to retire a little bit premature there because of him trying to hide some stuff with some domestic issues with one of his assistants or whatever there at Ohio State. And then we know it was a total disaster with Urban Meyer, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, with the team, and of course, not flying back with the team, and the stuff with the woman and the bar and the pictures and all that, and one and done, fired at the one and done. Very, very much a disaster there for Urban Meyer. So maybe he is compared to if he goes on to win. Now, he cannot be compared to Urban Meyer if he don't win national championships. But this thing feels like bad karma, and I just get a sense that it's just not going to work out for him. They're going to have to buy another coach out. they're going to have to just go out. And like I said earlier at the beginning, just find a young, hungry coach, a younger, hungrier coach there. Maybe like a Summerall, who's the coach now at Florida, from Tulane, somebody from one of these smaller schools, since you've already got the reputation of being a national powerhouse. So we'll see how this thing plays out. I don't think it will play out well for Lane Kiffin. I thought this was a fascinating story. I just could not hold myself not to open up with it. I know there's a lot of NFL news out there, but sorry, it was just really irking me to talk about that Lane Kiffin story there because he was being talked about for the Giants job, perhaps, because he coached Jackson Dart with the New York Giants. Okay. Where should I go now? Dun, 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 dun. I tell you what, I'll go to my NFL story. I'm not going to get to everything today. Got in a little bit later. But tomorrow, the games we didn't cover, we'll cover in a recap tomorrow. It's a lot to cover. Covering a recap tomorrow with the Mad New Yorker. And, of course, we'll pick this week's biggest games. And, man, we got some whoppers coming up on Saturday and Sunday, okay? But there was an interesting story I read today. Ben Roethlisberger said on his podcast recently, Mike Tomlin would be a good fit at Penn State. That's the other big job that's left open. We got Summerall going to Florida. We got Lane Kiffin going to LSU. I think they're going to, I want to say LSU's, or Ole Miss is keeping the defensive coordinator there. And, of course, Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to come back and coach there. That'd be interesting if Ole Miss can just keep him there, by the way. The son of Charlie Weiss, keep him there at Ole Miss. So there's all kinds of storylines there. So Ben Roethlisberger, in light of course, after the beatdown that the Bills, with two right and left tackles out against that highly compensated, desperate Pittsburgh defense at home, beat them like a drum. Roethlisberger says, hey, maybe Tomlin should just take the Penn State job. You know? And listen, like I said, with the Bills having one of the worst run defenses, bottom third of the league in the NFL, and you get a guy like I can't even remember the running back's name. I ended up taking him on fantasy. The running back there for Buffalo with two tackles out. These are, especially their left tackle. Was it Deion Dawkins? The left tackle Buffalo. James, whatchamacallit there. I almost had it there. It was on the tip of my tongue. Runs wild, 180-something yards rushing on Pittsburgh. And, of course, couldn't get any real pressure on Josh Allen there. And they lose again. So this team, and he's saying this because he's saying what everybody else is thinking, or people like me have been saying here for the past 2 years, is that he's done just enough not to get fired, Tomlin. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. And you're looking back at the fact that this team is high speed, like I said, most money spent on defense. Brought in Rodgers, made that big move and got DK Metcalf, moved George Pickens, and he's balling with the Cowboys here. And you got, it's cold weather outside. Aaron Rodgers, who's 42 yesterday, I think. Happy birthday, Aaron Rodgers, with this big cast on his wrist. And it looked like I feel like an idiot for picking the Steelers to win that game. You know? Because I figured they're at home, banged up offensive line. I knew the issues that the Bills had coming in. And, of course, none of that worked out. None of that worked out. And, of course, yesterday, today's Wednesday, yesterday, they cut one of their big free agent acquisitions, Darius Slay, and now he's signed with the Buffalo Bills. So, Roethlisberger is saying the inedible. It's gotten stale there. He should move on from Pittsburgh, and really Pittsburgh should move on from Tomlin, okay? And you look at the team, guys like T.J. Watt, love Cameron Hayward, love T.J. Watt, 32-year-old T.J. Watt, who's very frustrated with what they gave him a lot of money in the offseason, like that's going to solve a bunch of problems. And, love Cameron Hayward, a big watcher of Sports Scope, but he's 35, and then Watts post 30. And I mentioned Slay's about 34. He's already been cut. Jalen Ramsey's in his 30s. He's fighting and players spitting on him and stuff. And who was it? Jamar Chase was suspended for spitting on him. So it's just one big disaster. I said they go about 11-6 and they would fade in the playoffs. I don't even know if they're going to go 11-6. They got to play at the Ravens this weekend. The Ravens ain't that great. But he's got 2 years, 2 more seasons left on this contract. What he should do is, air quote, possibly look at that Penn State job. But he looks a little burned out, looks a little sluggish there. I think maybe he should simply retire early, retire after 18 years, Like I said, my man Ralph Williams from Works Radio up in the Pittsburgh area, been talking Steelers for a long time, was saying that he's going to retire anyways after these 2 years. I don't know if the fans really want to stomach it. And my question to Mike Tomlin, why would you even want to fool with this? Why would you even want to go? Because you know they got to rebuild after this year. You know Aaron Rodgers is going to retire. You know he's going to retire. Guys like T.J. Watt want to get out of there. I mean, what are you going to do? You got all these older players. This team needs a total rebuild. They can't run the football. They got some pieces on the offensive line. They got a right tackle I like. The left tackle was hurt. I think I'll hire Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, who's not any good as an offensive coordinator. It's one of the best jobs in football because it's one of the most stable organizations ever. 3 coaches since 1969. But why don't he retire after this year, be an analyst, and maybe come back when this, contract's over, when this contract expires, because they'll still have his rights, or they can grant him, their blessing, and he take a college job. Of course, if he retires for just 1 year and takes an NFL job, they still have his rights. Somebody would have to trade for him. Or the Steelers could simply just let him out. I don't know. 2 years, not a long time. He's not an old guy, per se. I think he's like 60 or so. He's not very old. He's not Bill Belichick old. He's not Pete Carroll old. But that team's been stale for a while now. They were put together for one last run. He's going to retire anyways. It's not worked out. It's not going to work out. I think he should this year. And you got former Steeler greats saying maybe just take the Penn State job. Go out with a little dignity. I don't know if he wants to do that, but it's interesting to see how it would look at. But maybe the Rooney family says, something? Maybe you should take that job. Kind of push him out the door with a little dignity there and a little appreciation for what he has done, not having a losing record, yada, yada, yada. But the team's stale. You already know what's going to happen in the playoffs. They're going to get destroyed like they do every single year if they even make it this year. So that's my one NFL story. Let's go with the Power 5. Listen, this is just a snapshot. As I said before, I don't think, as good as the Rams are, at times, Denver looks really good. Chicago, New England, there's just no dominating team. I think whoever gets hot down the stretch and whoever's the healthiest is going to win it this year. I've said that. So let's start my Power 5 here. Seattle is still in fifth. Had a big shutout win there. I know it was against a third-string quarterback there with Minnesota. But Sam Darnold is in a little bit of a slump, though. Took 4 sacks, no touchdowns, 128 yards in a supposed revenge game against Minnesota. But Seattle did get the shutout, like I just said. Young defense coming into his own. 9-3, third in points allowed. Any given day can beat anybody. I think Seattle still a tough team here. 9-3, they're a wild card team technically right now. Got them in at number 5. Number 4, they've made it into my Power 5 this week after beating the Philadelphia Eagles, the way Al Michaels would say it, which I think he called the game, him and Kirk Herbstreit on Friday there, if I'm not mistaken. Chicago, the number 1 seed in the NFC, coming off a big solid wire-to-wire win at Philadelphia. Maybe the best skill group in the league with Roman Dunze, DJ Moore, Colston Loveland, Luther Burton, DeAndre Swift. And now the Bears have got Jalen Johnson back at cornerback, and you started to see that in last Friday's game against the Philadelphia Eagles, getting that cornerback right. Caleb Williams, sacks way down, getting rid of the football, quarterback rating slightly up. They look like a team. Ben Johnson was a home run. Took his shirt off. Got a little crazy there the other day. Kind of went a little Dan Campbell-ish. But, hey, the Chicago Bears are in at number 4 on the Power 5. That's the first time they broke into my Power 5. They had a lot of issues on the defensive side, but it looks like that's getting solidified. That cornerback's very good. He's got a big contract. He's a defensive player of the year type of talent. Now, Jalen Johnson is big get there. Okay, number 3. Listen, I would have New England a little higher, but I'm still concerned about, I know they won big, but listen, they played the Giants. Giants haven't had their bye week yet. The Giants, one of the worst run defenses in the league. I don't want to put too much into the Giants win per se. And like I said, the left tackle, Will Campbell's on IR with the MCL sprain. But that being said, listen, defense, 5th in points, 3rd in run defense, may playing at an MVP level. Most passing yards. This is an interesting stat, folks. Players with the most passing yards on teams usually do not have number 1 seeds. Players, because they're usually down in games. That's why their passing yards up, so they're throwing to get back in. So this is a weird situation and a very impressive situation for Drake May, who's on pace to possibly challenge Matt Stafford for the MVP this year. Second-year players, Lamar Jackson won the MVP in his second year. Second-year quarterbacks. Listen, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger, all Super Bowls in the second year. So it's not out of the question. Maybe they get Will Campbell back here in a few weeks. They go on a Super Bowl run. And they don't have the greatest running game. I mean, I like Trayvon Henderson, and Stevenson's okay. But they don't have the greatest running game in the world. But they lead the league in passing, and they got the 1 seed there. Very impressive there. Stephon Diggs way past his prime. He's dealing with guys like Hunter Henry and was it Bourne or whatever, Keyshawn Boot or whatever, the wide receiver there was a late round pick out of LSU. So it's been a home run with the Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels, who's doing a very good job. He's not head coaching material, but he's doing a very good job with Drake May. So that's my number 3. Again, they'd be higher if Campbell was healthy. They could take a fall at any time. I'm curious to see once Buffalo potentially gets Ed Oliver back, how they would match up in those two tackles again with Buffalo, without possibly Will Campbell coming back. So, anyways, okay, now number 2, Denver. Denver also has a big time player coming back, Patrick Surtain. Remember, he's been hurt the last few weeks. He's back, returning Defensive Player of the Year. I know, and listen, they lead NFL in sacks. Very good defense. I know Bo Nix isn't all world, but he don't make mistakes late. They win a lot of games late. I know that could be dangerous. They could be one and done. But listen, they're playing tough football. They're playing fearless football. They're well coached there. Sean Payton doing a very good job. They were in the playoffs last year. You can't call them too much of a fraud. It feels a little bit like it, but you can't really lean too much into that. They're 4th in points. Listen, it is what it is. Lead NFL in sack, 5th in total defense, 4th in points. Bo Nix, no mistakes late. Got them in at number 2, and I think they got the 2 seed in the AFC. They're leading the AFC West. And, of course, number 1, the Rams. Listen, got a little flat last week, okay? Rams coming off 2 big wins. Big wins. Airtight game that they played against Seattle. Win that one by 2 points or something like that. Seattle misses a field goal. Then the very next week, highly emotional game against a NFC South leading Tampa primetime game. Destroys Tampa with that defense. Even Baker Mayfield even gets hurt in that game. And they come east, early start time against a Carolina team who got humiliated by the 49ers on a Monday night. They come in a little flat-footed from the defensive side of the ball, and they got beat. But that being said, Stafford still the MVP favorite. Defense, not a lot of injuries. Still say they're going to be rock solid. Still would be my favorite to get to the Super Bowl if the playoffs start today, especially with Eagles reeling. Eagles out of top 5. The way they played Friday, two-game losing streak, you don't know what you're going to get out of that. I just cannot put them in the top 5 right now. They're lost right now, and they got to get it together. They got to go play the LA Chargers this weekend. So, number 1, Rams. Number 2, Denver. Number 3, the New England Patriots. Number 4, Chicago. May have Chicago a little bit higher. I know they're the 1 seed in NFC, but Caleb Williams is still a little shaky out there. He's got under 60% completion percentage. Let's see how they play going forward. So number 4, Chicago, and of course number 5, Seattle rounds out my Power 5 this week, folks. Okay, now this is next story I'm going to get to. Now, I know you say, well, it's another college football story, but listen. This Indiana-Ohio State game, I just cannot help to talk about it. So Brian Hartline, I think he says he's the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. I think he's going to take the job. I want to say South Florida or something. Hartline, I want to say he actually used to play for the Tennessee Titans here as a player. Since then, so that's been years ago. Bounced around in the college game and got up to a job at offense coordinator, Ohio State. I'm going to say he's got a South Florida job, so he's moving up in his career. Could this be a potential distraction for him as they prepare for the postseason? Ohio State, big win. Congratulations against Michigan. You beat a true freshman quarterback there. This is Sharon Moore-led team. And a true freshman quarterback with that loaded defense. You should have won. Said you would win. Said you went about 23-13. It was 27-9. I wasn't off. I was up about 4 points off there. So, anyways, big game here. A lot of talk about how good is Ohio State's defense. Is this defense statistically, is this as good as, say, the 2001? Because they've got 2 first-round picks here. They got a linebacker edge rusher here that I know been talked about. I didn't get his name, but him and Downs, of course, the safety, likely locks on the that's just the defensive side of the ball. Not to mention Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, likely locks when they're ready to come out. I know Smith can't come out this year. First-round picks on the offensive side of the ball. And Julian Sands got a 78% completion percentage, But my thing is, this game, number 1 and number 2, the true number 1, true number 2, both undefeated, coming in to this game. This reminds me of Florida and back in 2009 with Tim Tebow. Florida with Tim Tebow playing that Nick Saban team who had beat them in the SEC championship game the year before. Nick Saban takes over, I want to say in 2007. Gets the guys in shape, brings in a lot of players, plays well early, falls apart late. 2008, goes undefeated regular season, comes up short against Florida in the SEC championship game. 2009 comes back strong again, beats Florida. That was a really hype coming in that game. I remember getting the pizza and everything with my dad and everything. That was a big game. Beats Florida again. Tebow's crying and everything. And I think that was the game where Urban Meyer started talking about leaving. He had heart issues and everything. Carlos Dunlap gets a DUI before they. I mean, just all kinds of drama there. But the hype on that conference championship game, I haven't really read into that much hype since this game. This is what this game, because you got Ohio State, looks to be dominant, but who have they really beat? They beat Texas at the beginning of the season, 14-7. Okay, that's a good win. Remember, Texas ranked number 1. But remember, Texas was beat by Georgia by, 35 points later on? They were beat by lowly Florida. They got a big win at A&M, but how good really was Texas? And they also beat Illinois, but this Indiana team beat Illinois like 63-10. It was a ridiculous score, but Illinois is ranked pretty high. So, and then, like I said, they beat a true freshman quarterback that led Michigan. Who'd Michigan beat? Nebraska? They got beat by the USC by 17 points. And USC's been ran by Notre Dame. And then Oregon beat the crap out of USC. But then you look at Indiana's schedule. Indiana goes up to beat Oregon by 10 points in Eugene, Oregon. And they beat Illinois. Like I said, they stomped the crap out of Illinois. And in between that, they beat this Iowa team that's pretty decent, in a sandwich game. Now, you could say, well, they struggled against Penn State. Yeah, they did. I think that Penn State game was at the end of the season, the last 3 weeks. And you just think that they're kind of coasting. They had Maryland. I'm talking about Indiana now. So I say all that because on Monday, Indiana's 6-point underdogs to Ohio State in this Big Ten championship game. Okay. Now it's like, depending on what book you look at, whether you're looking at ESPN, what they put, I think, which is DraftKings, they don't have their own bet thing now. Or you look at a FanDuel per se, that point spread is down to 4 or 4.5, depending on what book you look at, So I say that this is a big game for NFL scouts looking at Fernando Mendoza, which the Athletic right now, and there's other mock drafts, by the way, including the Field Yates and the Mel Kiper. The last I heard with them, Fernando Mendoza, number 1 mock draft pick right now, pending who gets him, whether it's Tennessee, who get that pick, per se, Tennessee, the Saints, whoever, right? And you got him sitting there with 32 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, not a lock for a Heisman, and hadn't had that big moment yet. Although he destroyed Purdue, but they're Purdue. Then you got Julian Sayin on the other hand here, 78% completion percentage, similar numbers, but he's throwing, like I said, two lock first-round picks, wide receivers, Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. Okay. So Titans fans are going to be watching this game in anticipation because you like the Tennessee Titans up here with that number 1 overall pick. And you got to be looking at a guy like Mendoza and you think to yourself, is this guy with these numbers, if he tears it up, what if they win close? What if they win? And he has a good game. He don't have a great. What if they win and he's 20 of 25, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and it's 27-24? What if that happens? And you look at a guy like Cam Ward who's got under a 59%. Do you keep him? You know? So that's a good problem for a Tennessee, possible Giants or whoever gets that pick, to have right now. So scouts, a lot of scouts are watching this game because of the hype on the Ohio State defense, because how good he's played, but also how good they've played defensively, in this particular game coming up this weekend. But like I said, I mean, if you want to keep Ward, maybe the Tennessee Titans could get some, they could get some draft capital for Ward if they traded Ward. If they wanted to keep Ward, which I think they probably do at this point, but you got to do your homework and work the guy out. All this comes up on this week. You say, well, it's already been set. Well, but this is that top-notch defense right here. And the owners are watching this game coming up Saturday night. Scouts are watching this game. General managers watch this game. Fan base is going to be calling in radio stations, going on shows like mine, podcasts, NFL shows, college shows, you name it. A lot of pressure is going to be on him coming in, particularly Fernando Mendoza coming up in this particular game, because if you're a Tennessee right now and you look at a team like the Raiders, who are probably going to be drafting behind you, possibly, or the Jets with all those picks I talked about, through the Quentin Williams and the Sauce Gardner trade. And the Jets, congratulations, won last weekend. They beat Atlanta. I mean, how much would they give up for to move up to 1 to get a guy like a Mendoza, who's got about 19 starts under his belt, plus would be prime ready, 22 years old, to make that jump. Now, if he lays an egg, then doubt starts to come in about looking at other quarterbacks. But right now, he has that hype of the number 1 prospect in America right now. And his stock did go up a few weeks ago when they came back late. That last-minute drive looked like an NFL drive in the Penn State game. Per se. So that is just so many storylines in one particular game and a lot of pressure there. Now, if I'm Kirk Cignetti, that's the Indiana head coach, I'm going to go up to Mendoza, and I'm telling him, listen, Not to be cliche, son, one throw at a time. One throw at a time. Okay? One play at a time. Let's not worry about too much this outside noise. It's very noisy outside. That's a good thing. We've earned it. But also, I'm telling him, if you throw an interception in this game, listen, very good defense, very talented, fast, one of the best safeties in the country, one of the best pass rushers, linebackers in the country. And if he throws an interception in this game, the next time we get the ball back, so he won't be rattled, I'm calling a pass play the very next possession just to say, I still got confidence in this guy. That's what I'm telling him. You know, I'm calling that. I'm telling the offense, I don't know if he calls the plays or not. I don't think he does, but I'm telling the offensive coordinator, if the coordinator calls the plays, go ahead and throw it again. Go ahead and throw it again. Because this is a very good team. I'm leaning actually picking Indiana, you know. Because remember last year, as good as Ohio State was, they lost in Eugene, Oregon just a year ago. And I know that's different players and everything. So I don't see, and I could be 100% wrong. I'll give a prediction with the Mad New Yorker tomorrow on this game. But I'll say this, that I just don't see a big blowout here, you know? And again, if it is, where do you put Ohio State? I mean, of course, they got to play the playoff and stuff, but the hype on how good Ohio State really is, that hype bubble and that NFL stock with those players are going to go up as well coming in to this game Saturday. I thought it was fascinating, you know, totally fascinating game. I've already set up my DVR to record that game 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Saturday night. As much as I like the SEC, and I know the Alabama and Georgia game be good, but I really like that Indiana game and that Ohio State game. I've been looking forward to this game for weeks. I was just hoping that both teams would stay undefeated. And of course, college found a way to slip in National Signing Day, which I hate, right in the middle of the season like this. But listen, Tennessee, and I talked about this a few weeks ago with Josh Heupel, okay? Talked about this a few weeks ago with the problems they had when they lost to Oklahoma, where the quarterback has to play perfect for them to win. And then Saturday, they get humiliated. I mean, they got humiliated at home by Vanderbilt. And I was wondering why he hadn't fired his defensive coordinator. And of course, I saw today that they have, according to 24/7, which is the most accurate site out here, as far as they balance all the recruiting rankings together. And he's not fired. What's this guy's name? Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator yet. But they've got several four-star players here on the defensive side of the ball, including this 5-star second prospect. He was the number 1 prospect in the country. The second prospect overall here at the quarterback position. I'll tell you his name here in just a second. But now they're saying they're number 7, so it keeps going up and down. But Faison Brandon has signed with him, number 2 player overall, and number 2 quarterback overall. So, like I said, several 4-stars. So maybe he wanted to make sure and get some of these players signed and see what happens from there. But I tell you what, they don't fix this defense the boosters of the fan base, they're not going to want him to be the coach there anymore. I don't care how many other games he wins at the end of the season. If you fall apart at the end of every season, you're losing 3 and 4 games. People's going to get frustrated with that. We'll see what they do internally between now. Like I said, they got a pretty good class here. It was 5th at one time. Now it's 7th. I don't know if somebody else out recruited them or what. But when I checked it earlier, they had them listed as 7. Now Georgia and Ohio State have passed them up. Go figure. But they've got 10 4-star players, 2 5-star players. So they got an offensive tackle there. It's a very good. That's a very good class there. And of course, topping out the top 5 here was USC of all teams. Got the number 1 class in the country, followed by Oregon, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia at 5, Ohio State at 6, Tennessee at 7. Like I said just a few hours ago, they're number 5. So I don't know what happened. I guess these other teams got some other late signees commitment. I think they have another one coming up in February. I haven't understand that about college signing day. They used to have it first Wednesday in February, and then they changed it up. So, anyways, thought I may be short on material. I'm right at 56 minutes. Folks, if you like the show, share the show. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to study that game a little bit more. Indiana and Ohio State, a little bit more there. I don't know. That's going to be a good one. Of course, we'll talk about 5 biggest games in the NFL. Talk about that as well. Big weekend coming up. Big college football. Big NFL weekend. I'm excited. I don't know about you. But I'll be back here with the Mad New Yorker. We'll be breaking it down. And possibly next week, Rich Ferris from Big Ten and Rich will bring his guys on. And we'll be talking about the college football playoff, breaking that down next week. So that'll be possibly 1 week from today. Have a good night, everybody. See you same time, same place tomorrow here on The Real Sports.